Hi, I'm Lippy.
And I'm Grumpy. Together, we're Lippy and Grumpy Do Podcasting.
In this episode, what 3 words disagreement, more Monopoly, Davros's playlist, and our top tips for a stress-free Christmas.
Now, Lippy, you've had a good week, haven't you?
I've had a great week. I mean, I am shattered, but I've had a good week. I have started my new job.
Shattered, and we're recording this on Tuesday, so that's day 2.
That's day 2, and day 1 was only 5 hours. I don't know how I used to work 9-10 hour days, because one 5-hour day and one 7.5-hour day, and I am shattered.
Well, after 9 months of watching probably all of Netflix,
yes,
it's not a surprise, so well done.
Yeah, it's been great. I've really enjoyed it. I've made some friends, and it's only day 2, so I think It's a good fit.
Brilliant. Onwards and upwards, as they say.
Definitely.
Well, whilst you've been slaving over whatever it is you've been slaving over, we've had some correspondence from various listeners. I had an ex-colleague get in touch, which we'll refer to as the Salty Sailor, I think.
Oh,
And yes, Salty Sailor, yes, boat owner now down in the West Country. He's not overly keen on what 3 words, has to be said. Now, I know the Salty Sailor from working together previously. A lot of respect for this man. He's ex-military and quite precise, and I suspect that is the root of the problem. I think we're going to have to agree to disagree over that one. I think it has its place, particularly for those not used to dealing with such precision and quite frankly in a bit of a panic. So,
yeah, I don't know where I am at the best of times, let alone when something bad's happened.
Well, that's possible. That's very possible. But at least with this app, you have some chance of getting some help if you need it. So.
Exactly.
But it was very nice to hear from you, Salty Sailor, and we look forward to hearing from you again. Orange Marshall 1 got in touch about Monopoly. He's in favour of the electronic version, which he says produces very few arguments. I think I got confused with how much money I had or didn't have.
Yes.
And it just felt a little bit Big Brotherish, to be honest, where the bank's got everything and you have no idea what you've got, which is too much like real life, quite frankly.
Exactly. And also, you like to have the little money handing out and like little trade-offs, and you can't do that it doesn't really let you do it with the electronic version.
No, not in the same way. And I quite like to have my pile of money completely disorganised as well, because it annoys wife of Grumpy immensely.
To be honest, it annoys me as well. You should have your money laid out. You should know. That's a lie. I like my money in a stack, so people can't quite work out how much you have.
Yes, indeed.
But it still needs to be like 1s, 5s, 10s, 20s, like in order.
Yes, it surprises me that I don't insist on that sort of order.
It's a strange thing for you.
I think because you'd have to be counting it and then it's obvious what you've got, whereas if you've just got it in a stack, then, or massive wad, then, who knows. It's a bit like CDs for me, and I know this is a little bit old hat, but our CD collection is in a completely random order. And the reason for that is when you're looking for one, you find others as well. So if you've got it in alphabetical order, you go straight to that one. But if you've got to rummage through them, you go, oh, I haven't listened to that one for a while. So
I've
inevitably,
not listened to a CD since I was probably 12.
No, and I can remember which CD it was as well. Britney Spears, I believe. I think I was trying to decorate the hallway and had it on over and over again.
Probably.
Yeah, so, yes. I don't think we own that CD anymore. I think it may have disappeared.
Magically vanished. Between that and the what's, that's what I call...
Music,
like 56, 57.
I have got the very first edition of that on a cassette tape, yep.
On a cassette?
Yep. On a cassette, yeah, so that's part of my pension plan.
That is a whoo moment.
Yes. Well, it might be better if it was an 8-track cartridge, but you've probably never heard of those.
Nope.
No, okay. Well, a lesson for the future.
Okay.
Anyway, back to Monopoly. By complete fluke, came across a photograph of 4 guys playing Monopoly on a roller coaster. The words "why" and "how" come to mind. I'll post it on.
Maybe?
Possibly.
That's crazy.
Possibly just insane. Who knows? Anyway, I'll post the photo on our website and also in various social media as well. It's quite an interesting one, to put it mildly. But, there were some very odd activities going on this roller coaster. There was all sorts of photos of people doing stuff that they really hadn't thought through, to be honest. So, yes, very odd. People in very odd costumes as well. Talking of odd costumes, obviously we've been Davrosted again this week.
Yes.
Very long email about various bits and pieces. Quite a good idea in terms of recipes, and that's to replace the photograph in the recipe book with your own photograph of your own dish.
Yeah.
Now, he mentioned last week about cottage pie not working for him, so I can imagine that picture of a cottage pie is... People are going to go, oh, it's just like the recipe, but they're still not going to be impressed. So if it's an utter failure, I'm not sure that's going to
That's not going to change the effect.
Definitely not. And obviously Monopoly was quite a popular topic last week, and Davros goes on to say that he had an all-night session with his friend and a neighbour. And the neighbour was determined to win and wouldn't go home until he had won. It looks like he got through to the, probably the late hours. The sun came up. So depending on when that was, that could have been quite a long time. But Davros's plan, and presumably this is what he does with the Daleks as well, is he had 2 or 3 properties on Orange.
Yes.
And he said once Orange was complete, he had lost the game. So that is clearly that hotspot on the map we had last week. That is the way to go forward.
Definitely.
Absolutely. And then we have the Davros playlist, which now Davros, I think, also works in the cassette and 8-track cartridge world. So when I suggested that maybe he could put together a playlist on Spotify, he went, what's that? So I have done that. I have put his slightly eclectic mix of Christmas songs. And there is some genius in there, I have to say. And I go, oh, yeah, I hadn't thought of that. And, I didn't think that was a Christmas song.
Might stick that on the way to work tomorrow.
Yeah, so again, we'll put the link on Facebook and just about wherever we can put it, really. And also on lippyandgrumpy.uk. And we have some Die Hard news. We had a little tweet came through of somebody suggesting that Die Hard is in fact a Harry Potter movie because you've got people running around a dark building trying to avoid Alan Rickman.
And I now get that because I watched it.
Fantastic!
It truly is a great film.
It is a great film. The second one's good as well.
Is it? Okay. We were kind of umming and ahhing about watching the second one because we were like, is it just more of the same? Which is good, but...
It's a little bit more of the same. The same characters involved, but it is a completely different setup. It is well worth watching. It is a good film. And the third one as well is good with Samuel L. Jackson.
Yeah, I just think Alan Rickman was such a good bad guy.
He was. The bad guys in the next 2 are very good as well. And not, I could put a spoiler on, so I'm not going to do that.
Oh no, let's not do that.
No,
it's an old film, but we don't do spoilers.
No, definitely not. Definitely recommend the next 2. Our fourth one, not so sure about.
I also do have to admit, it doesn't have to be a Christmas film.
Oh, it does.
If the logic prevails that if you can take Christmas out of it and it still makes sense, you can take Christmas out and that film still makes sense.
Well, it doesn't really, because they wouldn't be having a Christmas party.
Well, actually, at the start, he says that it's because they've been doing really well, so they could just be having a we've done really well party.
Have you ever had a we've done really well party?
I've never been in a company that's done really well. They all seem to go bust or get coronavirus and then I get made redundant.
Okay, so hopefully your current employer's not listening to this.
Well, it's not me that makes them go bust.
No, not much from the last week, to be honest. I did come across an article, I think it was a video actually, of sheep coughing, which is the most bizarre sound I've ever heard.
I've heard that before. It's very much like a...
Yeah, it is, exactly. It's more like a choke.
Yeah.
It's the sort of thing when you get a fly caught down the back of your throat.
And they really open their mouths as well.
Yeah, they're quite odd sheep. I find them slightly scary, I have to say. Because they're just a little bit random.
You've been watching that film a bit too much.
Oh, Black Sheep, yes,
Black Sheep,
absolutely, yes. Yes, I haven't seen that for a long while, actually.
And I'm a bit deluded in that.
Well, yeah, they're very deluded in that, but I think that might have something to do with chemicals. And also, the 7:30 endless alarm clock is back.
Oh, no.
Yeah, last 2 mornings. It's started, I think, at about 7:30 and finished about 8 o'clock. So it's obviously banging on for about half an hour. But
That wouldn't matter for me because I've left the house by 7:30 these days.
Well, at the moment. It's not your alarm, then, is it?
I mean, if you can hear my alarm from here, then that's a loud alarm.
Very true. I can't locate where it is. It's no, I just can't do it. It's not loud enough at the front of the house to work out where it's coming from. Yes, I would imagine the immediate neighbours are none too happy with that going off every morning. Now, it's a week before Christmas, exactly, when this is released. So we thought we'd do a Lippy and Grumpy's Guide to a Stress-Free Christmas. Now, some of this will be hints and tips that we've amassed over the years, or rather I've amassed over the years. And you've gone for a different source of information.
I have, yes. Because I have never hosted a Christmas, I attend your Christmas and I sit there drinking, having a great time, whilst you do all the running around and cooking and all of that jazz. So I went for a slightly different approach and decided to read through a lot of the internet's steps to a stress-free Christmas and find the silliest ones.
That's very wise. One of the top tips I had on my list was don't read any article that contains the word perfect Christmas.
Definitely. I think from reading quite a few, some of the steps you're like, that doesn't seem to be stress-free, that seems to be stress-adding.
Well, not only is it not or is stress-free, depending, also it's sort of pitching the perfect Christmas that you may not get anywhere near because they've had time to do it in a studio and think about it and all the rest of it. One of my favourite records is Baz Luhrmann and a spoken song called Everybody's Free to Wear Sunscreen, which was released in 1999. And one of the lines from that is, do not read beauty magazines, they will only make you feel ugly. And that's spot on. And that's the same for articles with the headline Perfect Christmas. So, having said that, let's have a Lippy top tip from the Perfect Christmas.
So, my first one that I found that is a good idea, and it isn't at the same time. So, this one was online food shop. So your food gets delivered to you. It makes sense. That does seem a bit more stress-free. You don't have to go to the shop to buy the items. But something that happens with online food shops that would be extremely stressful is if they don't have the product in stock, they give you a replacement. And it's as like for like as they can do. But I've seen many a time on a Facebook being like, I was meant to get jam and they gave me peanut butter, and it's like they're not the same. And the food shops, they normally do them kind of like 20th, 22nd, like very close to Christmas. Imagine they swapped your chestnuts for like a jam 3 days before Christmas. You're not going to get chestnuts anywhere, are you?
Well, that's hard at the best of times. And to be honest, it's quite stressful. If you leave the food shop into Christmas Eve, which we have done on a couple of occasions, it's absolute carnage in the shops at the best of times. And if things like chestnuts, and I have come home with water chestnuts, which are not the same thing.
They're not the same thing.
quite a country mile, they're not the same thing. It's very easy, and I can imagine the utter horror when you open your online shopping basket to find some absurd substitution that does seem to happen from time to time.
I see online shopping is probably a bit more stress-free, but if you've got a wrong item that close to Christmas, it's not going to be a fun time trying to find one. If it's not in the shop and they couldn't send it to you, it's not likely to be in any other shop.
No, that's very true. Which comes on to my, second now, top tip, which is if you have been organised and order a turkey, make sure you turn up on the right day. Because if you don't, the likelihood is it won't be available, and you'll also be in a queue with lots of other people who are getting quite stressy because they've had to stand in a queue. And this year, of course, you've got to stand 2 metres apart. So the queue for the butchers is going to be enormous, which is why I should be there at 7 o'clock.
But you've already ordered turkey?
Yes, it's already ordered.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
That's all right.
Yes, but the queue to collect. But you have to buy sausages and sausage meat at the same time. You can't pre-order it. So I think we might go for a week before and freeze it. Jobby, yes. And leading on from the turkey, top tip, and this is a serious top tip, is to brine the turkey at least overnight beforehand. We did it a couple of years ago for the first time, and the turkey is so succulent, and it dramatically reduces the cooking time. It's down to mere hours rather than days, which I seem to remember from years gone by. It would go in on Christmas Eve sometimes at a very low heat, but it would be as dry as cardboard.
Yeah.
Not so nice at all. And
Yeah,
of course,
turkey has been good the last few years.
yes, it has been okay. Even you've enjoyed it, and you're not a massive turkey fan, unless it's turned into curry, of course.
Oh, I do like
Coronation
turkey.
turkey.
Yes.
Yes. And the other trick with the turkey is to rest it after it's been cooking. So we normally take it out of the oven an hour before we eat and cover it in tin foil, and it doesn't get cold. There's still a lot of heat in it.
And also you smother dinner in gravy and other things that are hot, so I don't really notice.
Well, you do.
It's a little bit cold.
But it doesn't, and I think all the juices flow back into it, or there's some technical description for why you should rest it. All the top chefs would tell you that. Not that I'm including myself in the top chef category by any stretch of the imagination. Right, so let's have a top tip from you then.
So another one I found that I was a bit confused by to start with. I don't know how this is a top tip for a stress-free Christmas, but it said decorate. And then underneath it explained, don't just decorate your tree, decorate your whole house, every nook and cranny. That's stressful.
How is that not stressful? I mean, not only
Like, a tree is stressful enough to try and decorate.
I mean, not only have you got to put it up, which
You've got to take it down.
you've got to take it down as well, and you've got to store it.
Yeah.
It does seem a little over the top, to be honest.
It just doesn't seem like a tip for a stress-free Christmas.
No, definitely not.
To over-decorate.
No, I would say tip for a stress-free Christmas is don't bother. Just tree, job done.
Tree with some lights.
Yeah, that'll do. Bit of tinsel.
Oh, no. We are not a tinsel household.
Tinsel and paper chains.
I like a paper chain, but no tinsel. It's tacky.
It's not really.
It is.
It's not. It's lovely stuff. So carrying on with the cooking theme on my side is don't cross the Brussels sprouts.
Oh, it's time wasting, isn't it?
Well, it's time wasting and it's not necessary. And I have a tweet from Simon Rimmer from a few years ago where I quizzed him on this. And he did reply and say, no. I'll post a picture of that on Instagram. I think he may have been drinking a bit because he went on in some depth about why not, which was completely fictitious, but it was quite funny. So, no crossing your sprouts.
I do believe there was a time where you thought that you definitely had to cross your sprouts, though.
No, I've never thought that.
Oh, is that Mama West?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, she was quite adamant that the sprouts did not taste nice uncrossed.
Correct.
So another one that I have that just kind of blew me away. This is probably the worst top tip list I've ever read. It's mainly come from the Telegraph.
And, the publications are available.
Oh yeah, sorry, there are other top tip lists on other newspapers, I'm sure. This one was make your own wrapping paper. What? Just why? And obviously they put a little explanation underneath of what you can do, and I understand it might make you feel a bit more Christmassy, and if you have the time to do it, then it might be quite a nice thing, little like extra. But the person opening is not going to know.
No. Definitely not.
Unless you're there with them and you go, oh, I made the wrapping paper. And they'll be like, okay, I'm ripping it apart anyway.
Well, would you like it back?
Exactly. But there was a side note to this. Somebody I saw on Instagram was using, Amazon send quite a lot of that brown paper wrapped around.
Yes.
They were using that as wrapping paper.
Now that is a top idea.
That is a top idea because one, you're recycling very nicely. Brown wrapping paper on presents is quite normal, and then all she had to buy was some string. She bought some like cute red string when she was doing it to make it look a bit fancier.
That is such a good idea.
Great idea.
Right, well, as soon as we finish this, I'm going to go and have a rummage through the recycling bin.
Yeah, I would. Instead of this top tip that's saying use natural materials without glitter. Actually, that is a good tip. Don't use glitter. Stick them all together. Iron it out. No. You can't be ironing fake wrapping paper.
It would be interesting to try. I think it might result in a visit for the fire service.
I just don't think it will be great. But reusing brown paper like that comes in an Amazon box is a good idea.
A very good idea. Yes. Very good
I kind of
indeed.
wish I'd done that.
Yes, I'm thinking about that now. Mind you, I tend not to do the wrapping because I'm so dreadful at it.
Oh, I love wrapping. It's one of my favourite things.
Well, when you were here, you used to get lumbered with that job, to be honest.
We would have snowballs.
Yes.
You would be snowball maker.
Yeah.
I was always over the age of 18.
So carrying on from wrapping, my top tip for wrapping is not to leave it until Christmas Eve. Go to the neighbours for a drinks party and then have to leave at about 11:30 to finish it off.
Have you done that before?
I haven't. I was at the drinks party.
But you didn't do the...
But it wasn't my wrapping that needed to be done. So
That's funny.
with all this, is don't leave it to the last minute.
That is funny.
So what else is on your list?
I do have one, which actually I do think would make Christmas Day less stressful, but it is have a festive declutter and spruce.
I don't know what that means.
So kind of clearing out all the clutter around the house and have a clean up. But you don't really want to be doing that on the lead up to Christmas.
No, not really. That's the worst time to do it.
And I think it would make Christmas a bit more, like there's not as much rubbish in the way for Christmas.
I would have thought January was the time to do that, where you have very little money in the bank account.
Yes.
And you're trying to get fit as well, and obviously shifting bits around and dusting is quite a good way to stay fit.
Yeah, it is.
So I have a number of tips from many years of, well, far too many years of enjoying Christmas or not enjoying it, depending on how you look at it. So in no particular order. So top tip number 1 is spend the day in your pyjamas.
Yes.
I have done this on a few occasions, so even down to cooking. And the reason for that is you feel more relaxed.
Yeah.
The problem this year is that due to certain things that have been going on, I spent too many days in pyjamas, even working, because I've just got on with it. And then it's got to midday and I've gone, that's not worth changing now. Or I've got yoga in the evening and thought, actually, it's not worth changing until then.
Yeah.
I look at it
Yoga in your pyjamas is probably quite comfy.
Yeah, probably not actually. Yeah. It's not particularly comfy not in pyjamas either, in stretchy shorts. And I would suggest inviting as fewer people as possible, which of course this year is not going to be difficult, is it?
No.
We're limited in some respects. And don't start drinking at 8 o'clock in the morning. Otherwise, you'll be in bed at 5 in the afternoon.
Oh, no, I disagree with that one.
Well,
I think a glass of Bucks Fizz makes the rest of the day feel a lot smoother.
Very possibly.
Get the bubbles to your head.
Yeah, but it
get
depends
a
on
bit jolly.
Yeah, it depends what you do after that first glass.
What, like a few of us in the family have then decided to drink the rest of the Prosecco out of the bottle at 10 o'clock.
Christmas Eve, watch Santa on his journey on the NORAD tracker. That's very cool.
We've done that a few years.
That gets a little bit better every year. It's really quite good. And I thought there was a International Space Station pass on Christmas Day, but apparently that's not the case now. So that's changed, which is a bit of a shame. So what we had as kids, there was always a whole pile of us in the same house, is that there was a time where you couldn't get up before then. So 7 o'clock, and there was an alarm clock in the bathroom, but it was an old wind-up alarm clock. Well, it wasn't old at the time. So, of course, some years it got wound back a little bit.
Yeah, sure.
It may say 7 o'clock, but actually it's not 7 o'clock at all. But I think that's quite a good idea. And when you're leaving out a brandy or a whiskey for Santa, make sure it's a good one. Not the cooking brandy that you smothered the cake in.
Well, I don't think Santa minds, does he?
Santa probably wouldn't mind, but, you can only have so much cheap brandy before you go, oh, actually, I don't fancy it anymore.
Yeah, true.
At all. Chances are it's not going to snow, to be honest, on Christmas Day. But if it does, make an igloo.
Make an igloo.
Make an igloo. If you've got plenty of snow. Top tip, though, if you do that, make sure it's not the smallest member of the family that makes the doorway. Because they'll make it to fit them and nobody else. So it'll become
Nobody else can go in the igloo.
Absolutely. Again, this is from experience. One for you here. When the washing up starts, hide in the lavatory.
Yeah, every time there's any even slight mention of hot water and soap, I'm gone.
You are gone, definitely.
I'm gone. I'm not to be found until it's done.
Now, last week we talked about Monopoly.
Yes.
My top tip is not to play Monopoly, nor Risk, nor Diplomacy.
I think just don't play any game that could cause an argument.
Well, that's most games, really, but those three particularly. Diplomacy was a game that we played probably when I was in my teens quite a lot. And it was a whole afternoon game. And the factions that it caused, to be honest, because you're making deals with people and then stomping all over them for control of Europe, really. And yes, that does cause quite a few arguments, so avoid those games. And as a friend of mine did, and I wouldn't recommend this, went out Christmas Eve, enjoyed himself a little bit too much, eventually came down to Christmas dinner with his parents and could eat one Brussels sprout, and that was it. And then he was back to bed. And there was a lot of tutting.
There was at least 2 Christmas Eves where Charlotte and I went out, and we both came back a bit worried about the state we'd be in the next day. But actually, I've been alright. And to be honest, I'm one of those people where after a few drinks, I want to eat the next day. Like, the more the better.
Just don't overdo it.
No, well, there's a very nice, well, they won't be doing it this year, actually. It's not really a tradition, but I feel like it is in our village, where everyone does a pub crawl, normally. There's a couple of people we know who have birthdays on Christmas Eve, so there's loads of people out. We all make our way down, and in the last pub, at midnight, they hand out bacon rolls to get you to leave. So if you've got a bacon roll in your hand, you have to leave the building.
Excellent.
It's a great idea.
Not going to happen this year, is it?
No, that's a bit of a shame, actually.
A real shame.
Because that bacon roll is always really good.
Yeah, it would be, yes. Yes, would only be beaten by a pigs in blanket roll.
A little tray of pigs in blankets with some cheese on top.
Oh, yeah, that would be nice.
Might do that anyway, just at home.
That's not a bad idea, actually.
Mm-hmm. But not at midnight, more at like 9 o'clock. Cause
well, I was thinking more 8.
if I'm not out, I'm not awake that late.
No, quite. So back on the cooking trail, Christmas puddings. In my experience, they've only come out of the pot once in 15 years without anything left inside. Yeah. But if that happens, don't panic. You can scrape it out and you can push it back in. You can almost mould it back because it's still hot. Cover it in a bit of brandy. Flame it. Nobody will notice. So
and also, nobody cares about the Christmas pudding. Everyone just wants the fire.
That's very true. That's very, and of course you've turned the lights down to appreciate the fire, so they don't see the carnage that's just occurred in the kitchen.
So it doesn't really matter, does it?
Doesn't really matter.
As long as it lights, because some years they don't light, and that is disappointing.
There is a technique to that. You have to heat the brandy first.
Ooh. Now that's a good top tip.
Yeah, it is a good tip. So you heat it you have to be really careful with this because it will go up. So you heat it in a saucepan, get it so it's just smoking, and then light it as it goes onto the pudding.
Ooh.
Which can be a little exciting.
I do like that.
Because you've now got a pot alight and the pudding alight.
A lot of fire.
Yeah, a lot of fire potential.
It's okay, I'm a fire marshal. I'll marshal law.
Excellent.
I'll pudding this year.
What we don't want is you turning up with a fire extinguisher and then
spray.
covering it in
it's
foam.
some ice dusting type.
It's not. No, it's
don't
ash. So my top tip for the television is don't turn it on. Christmas Day, it'd be full of, maybe for the Queen's speech, which we've always tried to watch, and I don't think we ever have. So
caught the end of it sometimes, maybe. Or
possibly, yeah. Yes, I don't know, because you turn it on, it'll be full of repeats from the 1970s and 80s, which not too bad. But once you've seen them 15 times, that's probably enough. And then the Christmas specials always divide people.
They do.
And I'll be interested to know what Davros says about the Doctor Who Christmas special. I'm not sure he's quite got over Doctor Who being female, let alone anything else. So, and that's a few series in. If you've got young children, then I highly recommend stocking up with all sorts of batteries.
Oh, definitely.
And having a small screwdriver to hand, because inevitably the top gift for this year will need batteries, and then you'll see the words "batteries not included," and there will be so much disappointment. So much. They'll have to play with the box.
I mean, sometimes the box is the best bit.
Sometimes it is. Now, that's the end of my list. It has to be said these are, apart from the brining, not really serious tips. So if you follow them and do well, then we'll take full credit. If it's an utter disaster, then we never said it.
And one last tip that I think is this is a positive tip, is don't have really high expectations. If you go into Christmas thinking, we're going to have a lovely day with the family. At some point we're going to eat. The food's going to taste nice. You're going to have a great day. And your day will probably be better than if you were sat there thinking, this needs to be done this time, this needs to be done this time, this. You know?
Well, there does need to be a little bit of that, to be honest.
Yeah, a little bit, but not a perfect bit.
No, I think timing's important so that you get the cooking right. But I think worrying about have you got enough vegetables and is there enough cheese in the cheese sauce and why have I got so many leftovers? Not worth worrying about.
The leftovers, they're the best bit.
Yes, they are. Yes. Yes, I think we've got a top recipe this year for leftover veg. And I can't quite remember what it is, but it did look good. Better than Bubble and Squeak.
Ooh, now that's a bold thing to say.
That is quite a bold statement.
That is, because Bubble and Squeak is good.
Bubble and Squeak is good. I wish I could remember what it was, but I can't. Well, maybe those tips were helpful. Maybe they weren't.
See what happens.
See what happens.
They were more helpful than the telegraphs.
It's certainly more helpful than Telegraph, yes, absolutely. Well, we hope the next week goes well for you, and we'll have a Christmas message from Lippy and Grumpy on Christmas Day.
A bit like the Queen, but more sassy.
Like the Queen, but more sassy. That's quite a strapline. So that's it for this podcast. Thank you so much for listening. I would like to thank our sponsors, however we don't have any. If you're enjoying our rambling podcast and can spare a few pennies to help with our hosting costs, please head over to patreon.com/Lippy and Grumpy and also leave a good review or a bad one. If you have a topic you'd like covered, please leave us a message via our website, lippyandgrumpy.uk. So it's goodbye from me.
And goodbye from him.
Goodbye.